I feel so sorry for people who hate their jobs. I look forward to going to work every morning.
The Dick Van Dyke Show was a landmark program for television in 1961. The actors were torn apart by stress and jealousy despite the seemingly idyllic family picture. Dick Van Dyke, who is now 99 years old, now speaks out about the true drama, the star who felt betrayed, the crush he couldn't admit, and the reason his co-star avoided him for so long. West Plains, Missouri was the site of Dick Van Dyke's birth on December 13, 1925. It seems like his early life was uncomplicated in this tiny town of only a few thousand people. His dad, Lauren, sold cookies for a living while his mom, Hazel, was a typist. Nobody could have predicted that Dick would become a great entertainer. They lived an unremarkable existence. Surprisingly, performers like Jan Howard and Porter Wagoner were born and raised in this tiny hamlet. It's ironic that Dick was born in the same year as Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush, which features the humor for which Dick would eventually be known. Danville, Illinois was Dick's new home when he was a little boy. With a population of almost 30,000, Danville was a larger town. Everyone knew each other, so it seemed like most of the town was made up of Dick's family, according to him. Money was scarce since it was the 1930s, the year of the Great Depression. Since Dick's family, like most others, couldn't afford a radio, they would often visit a neighbor's house to hear their favorite programs. He fell in love with the entertainment industry during those occasions. It also came out that Danville was a great spot for talent. Singin' in the Rain's Donald O'Connor and singer Bobby Short are just two of Dick's classmates who went on to stardom. When Dick was a high school student, he was considering a career in ministry. However, after joining the theater club, his plans altered. He found that singing and dancing were his passions, and that he had natural talent for both. Since schools couldn't afford to purchase the rights to popular productions during World War II, they had to come up with their own plays and musicals. Due to his height and powerful voice, Dick was cast in the most prominent parts. The productions weren't very spectacular, but they offered him his first experience of acting. After a long absence, he finally earned his high school graduation in 2004 and even had a cameo in the school musical Bye Bye Birdie. That demonstrates how significant those years were for him. Dick enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces in 1944 while he was a high school student. He aspired to fly planes during World War II, but his lack of muscle prevented him from doing so. He was initially rejected because he was too short, 6'1" and only 135 pounds, but he persisted, eating bananas and drinking water until he was finally weighed in. After joining, he was assigned to a special unit that entertained troops, painting sets, acting in shows, and even working as a radio announcer. Dick would later joke that his fear of flying was the driving force behind his foray into show business. He served until 1946, during which time he found his passion for performing. At the tender age of 22 in 1947, Van Dyke landed his first job as a radio DJ at WDN, a tiny station in Danville. Despite his lack of experience, he walked in, asked for an audition, and was hired immediately. From 7 a.m. to noon, he hosted the morning show, which became a beloved program because of his gift for humor and the many voices and characters he would bring to his broadcasts. One of his most famous segments, Man on the Street, was an interview with locals that he conducted in a lighthearted, humorous manner. Although he nearly lost his job as a result of the mayhem that ensued on April 1, 1948, when he fooled the whole town into thinking a UFO had landed, he ended up being even more renowned in Danville. Towards the end of that year, Van Dyke crossed paths with pantomime specialist Phil Erickson, who was impressed by Van Dyke's sense of humor and proposed that the two of them form a comedy duo, which they dubbed Eric and Van, the Merry Mutes. Their act was completely unique. They did silent routines, lip-syncing to old songs while acting out comedic scenarios. Their most famous act involved alternating between the roles of an opera singer and a frustrated conductor, causing the crowd to burst into laughter. From 1947 to 1953, The Merry Mutes were on a relentless tour through West Coast clubs, sometimes performing 5 shows a night. In 1950, they set a new record for 35 shows in 1 week in Los Angeles. In 1951, they got their own TV show, The Merry Mutes Show, on WSB-TV in Atlanta, which helped them gain national attention. In 1952, they even appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show using their act, which included the slow-motion football routine, to make them famous across the country. The partnership ended in 1953 when Erickson decided to leave the entertainment industry, but Van Dyke continued. Following the Merry Mutes, Van Dyke shifted his focus to television. In 1955, he became host of the CBS Morning Show, where he brought his humor and creativity to the program, collaborating with puppeteer Bill Beard to create silly skits and characters. In 1956, he tried hosting a game show called To Tell a Lie, but it only ran for 13 episodes. Nonetheless, it gave him more experience in live television. In 1957, Van Dyke made his acting debut on The Phil Silvers Show, where he played 2 very different roles in 2 episodes, a hillbilly baseball player and a country cousin. The audiences loved him, and the show's creator even considered giving him his own spin-off, but it never happened. In 1959, Van Dyke had a Broadway opportunity in a musical called The Girls Against the Boys. The show didn't last long, closing after 16 performances, but Van Dyke stood out. One of his finest moments was a song called The Telephone Song, where he danced around a telephone booth while acting out both sides of a phone call. This performance garnered him notice from producers and critics alike, and he even won a Theatre World Award for being a promising newcomer. In 1961, Dick Van Dyke's life was turned upside down when he was cast as Rob Petrie in The Dick Van Dyke Show. Originally, the part wasn't even meant for him. The show's creator, Carl Reiner, based the character on himself and wanted to play the role himself. However, a producer named Sheldon Leonard saw Dick Van Dyke perform on Broadway and in Bye Bye Birdie, and he thought he would be perfect for the role. Dick even beat Johnny Carson, who was also being considered. The decision wasn't easy. 18 days before the show was supposed to start, CBS executives were still unsure. Late one night, they finally made their choice, and he was cast with less than 3 weeks to prepare. However, that last-minute decision ended up being the best one for everyone involved. Initially, Dick's salary was modest, $1,250 for the first season, or approximately $10,000 in today's money. But it skyrocketed as the show gained popularity, and by the last season, he was pulling in $35,000 per episode. The show had a rocky beginning, though. Initially, it wasn't very popular, and CBS almost canceled it. However, Procter & Gamble, a major advertiser, intervened to save it, telling CBS they would stop buying ads if the show was cut. This gave the show a second chance, and it quickly became a smash hit, quickly becoming one of the top 10 shows on television. The chemistry between Dick and Mary Tyler Moore, who played his wife Laura, was one of the show's strongest points. Their on-screen connection felt so genuine that viewers loved watching them. The show's producers were concerned about the actors' age gap at first, but it didn't matter once they saw how well they acted together. Afterwards, Mary even made a surprising comment in an interview saying, "The amazing thing is, we never had an affair." Despite the possibility of underlying animosity, they maintained a professional demeanor, and the outcome was satisfactory. I had always considered it a dreadful waste of time. The rest of the cast was also instrumental in making the show what it was. Mel Blanc, Buddy Sorrell, was so enamored with it that he composed the theme song lyrics, which were never used, and Rose Marie, Sally Rogers, had aspirations of being the show's leading lady. However, when Mary's character gained popularity, her part shrank, leading to some on-set friction but ultimately resulting in the show's success. Additionally, in contrast to other sitcoms of the period, The Dick Van Dyke Show eschewed the use of fake laughs in favor of real audience reactions. With each episode being rehearsed twice, once to gauge audience reaction and again for filming, the writers were able to fine-tune the jokes. The show also featured entertaining little surprises, such as the now famous opening scene where Rob tripped over the ottoman. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. This subtle touch kept viewers guessing, and the show felt new. Dick Van Dyke's big break in movies came in 1963 with Bye Bye Birdie. He played Albert Peterson, a songwriter trying to make it big while caught in a crazy publicity stunt. He had already played this role on Broadway and even won a Tony Award for it. But the movie version was different. The story was changed to focus more on Anne Margaret's character, Kim McAfee. The director loved Anne Margaret so much that he gave her extra scenes, even opening and closing the movie with her. This upset Van Dyke because his character wasn't as important in the movie as it had been on stage. Still, he gave a great performance, and the movie was a big hit, earning over $13 million. Even though he was 37, playing a man in his 20s, his energy and charm made it believable. The movie also caught Walt Disney's attention, leading to Van Dyke's most famous role in 1964. Van Dyke starred as Bert the Chimney Sweep in Mary Poppins. This role made him a worldwide star. He danced, sang, and brought humor to the movie, which became a huge hit, earning over $100 million. But there's one thing people never let him forget: his bad Cockney accent. Even Van Dyke jokes about it now, saying it was terrible. He said his accent coach, who was Irish, wasn't any better at it than he was. Surprisingly, nobody told him how bad it sounded during filming. Despite this, people loved his performance, especially the big step-in-time dance scene. That scene was really tough to film. Van Dyke, who was 41 at the time, had to keep up with much younger dancers. It took 23 takes to get it RR. An additional character that Van Dyke played in Mary Poppins was the elderly bank director, Mr. Daw Sr. However, he was not officially recognized for this role in the film. Instead, his name was listed as Navid Keed, which is actually just Dick Van Dyke scrambled up. Van Dyke had to undergo a screen test to appear older before Walt Disney would cast him in the role. To achieve this, he removed his false teeth, which gave him a thin and aged appearance. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was Van Dyke's second feature film, released in 1968, following Mary Poppins. In it, he played Caractacus Potts, an inventor who builds a magical flying car. The film had many interesting details, such as the fact that the car was made from parts of an old World War I airplane. Since Van Dyke was unable to drive a manual car, special automatic versions were used for him. The film's most challenging scene, the Me Old Bamboo dance, took 23 takes to complete, mirroring Mary Poppins. Despite the difficulties, the film eventually became a beloved family favorite. The comic, Van Dyke's 1969 comedic effort, was a departure from his earlier, lighter fare. It was about Billy Bry, a silent film comedian, whose life fell apart due to his own mistakes. The film opens with Billy's funeral and tells his story through flashbacks. Van Dyke's performance in the film was intense and dramatic, revealing a different side of him. The picture failed to earn a lot of money, but it was eventually praised for its depiction of the hardships of stardom and the silent film era. After the Dick Van Dyke Show ended in 1966, Dick Van Dyke made a triumphant return to television in 1971 with the new Dick Van Dyke Show, playing the role of Dick Preston, a talk show host based in Phoenix, Arizona. The show premiered on September 18th, exactly 10 years after the start of his first hit series. It was a departure from his earlier work, touching on serious issues such as interracial dating and childless marriages, subjects that couldn't have been discussed in the 1960s. Despite these innovative ideas, the show was not successful. According to writer Carl Orstein, the ratings were really bad. In the last season, the plot shifted to Hollywood, and Dick's character became a soap opera actor, but even that change couldn't salvage the program. Arguments were brewing behind the scenes, and things took a turn for the worse when CBS rejected an episode titled Lieutenant Preston of the 4th Cavalry. This irritated Carl Reiner, a major writer, and he resigned. Van Dyke believed the program couldn't carry on without him, and the run ended in 1974 after 72 episodes. In 1993, at the age of 67, Van Dyke made his television comeback with Diagnosis Murder, a crime-solving/medical drama series. In the show, he played Dr. Mark Sloan, a doctor who collaborated with his son, Detective Steve Sloan, to solve crimes. His real-life son, Barry Van Dyke, played the detective, creating a delightful familial dynamic. The show was a huge hit with audiences, and it ran for 8 seasons, concluding in 2001. With 178 episodes and 5 TV movies, it was one of Van Dyke's most successful endeavors. Fans particularly enjoyed the episodes that paid homage to his career, such as the one featuring Rose Marie, an actress from The Dick Van Dyke Show. At the age of 73, Van Dyke made his Broadway comeback in 1999, after nearly 40 years away, in The Gin Game, co-starring with Mary Tyler Moore. The two had previously worked together on The Dick Van Dyke Show, and their portrayal of two elderly people at odds over a game of gin rummy was highly acclaimed. Despite Van Dyke's arthritis, he was able to pull off the role thanks to hip surgery. The play had 145 performances before being adapted into a TV movie. In 2003, Van Dyke continued to be active as he aged. In 2006, at the age of 80, he appeared in Night at the Museum as a cunning night guard. Performing his own stunts, including a tricky jump over a counter, he proved he still had incredible energy. The film was a smash hit, earning over $574 million worldwide. In 2018, at the age of 91, he astonished audiences once again in Mary Poppins Returns. He danced on a desk in a big musical number, doing all the moves himself without a stunt double. The entire set was shocked by how energetic and sharp he was. Even in his 90s, Van Dyke continued to inspire. In his memoir Keep Moving, which he wrote at 89, he shared truths and tips about aging and how he remained active and joyful. When he was 91, he danced in a music video with his younger wife Arlene. The video went viral and showed the world his unstoppable joy for life. On his 96th birthday in 2021, he celebrated by singing with his a cappella group The Fantastics, which he started in 2000. In an online video, he looked full of life as he led the group in a cheery song. Even in his 90s, Dick Van Dyke proved that age is just a number if you stay passionate and keep moving. Margie Willett and Dick Van Dyke were married on February 12, 1948, in Danville, Illinois. They had 4 children, Christian, Barry, Stacy, and Carrie Beth. At first, their life appeared happy, but things weren't easy. Van Dyke was becoming a star, and his Hollywood career kept him busy. Margie didn't like the spotlight, and she preferred a quiet life. She didn't wear makeup and kept her hair short. People sometimes thought they were siblings instead of a married couple. Eventually, this discord drove them apart. After 36 years of marriage, the couple finally tied the knot. In the midst of all this, Van Dyke was battling an internal struggle that lasted over 25 years. It began in his 30s, when he was becoming famous for The Dick Van Dyke Show, when he drank to overcome his shyness, but it quickly spiraled out of control. By the 1970s, he had reached rock bottom and decided to seek help. In 1972, he spent 3 weeks in a hospital trying to quit drinking. He later said that he scared himself when he realized how much his drinking had transformed him, that he was no longer the cheerful, affable person he had been, but rather angry and aggressive, which was completely different from the man people saw on TV. In the mid-1970s, Van Dyke's personal life took a turn for the worse when he began an affair with Michelle Triola, his agent's secretary. It started out as casual phone calls and lunches, but soon escalated into a serious relationship. He did his best to keep it a secret, juggling time with both Margie and Michelle. It was draining and he felt guilty all the time. Eventually, he informed Margie about the affair and they separated. After 8 years, they divorced in 1984. Van Dyke and Michelle remained together for over 30 years but never got married. Michelle passed away in 2009, a year after Margie's cancer diagnosis. Van Dyke was loved by many, even though he had a difficult personal life. He worked hard and tried to use his experiences to help others. After his granddaughter died of Ray's syndrome, he appeared in ads warning parents about the dangers of aspirin for kids. He spoke frankly about his struggles with alcohol in the hopes that it would inspire others to get help. In his latter years, Van Dyke discovered serenity via his church activities and his devotion to reading about religion and spirituality. At the age of 95, he gave thanks to his wife, Arlene Silver, for maintaining his health through her insistence that he exercise frequently. He even quipped that her boundless energy kept him looking youthful. In 1964, Dick Van Dyke won an Emmy for his portrayal of Rob Petrie in The Dick Van Dyke Show. His memorable and entertaining characters were so well received that he repeated the feat in 1965 and 1966, solidifying his position as one of the most prominent comedic stars of the 60s. In 1976, at the age of 50, he shocked everyone by winning another Emmy for Van Dyke and Company, demonstrating that he could still entertain and adapt to different types of shows. He began his career in comedy, but proved he could also handle serious roles. Throughout his life, he won 6 Emmys and was nominated 10 times. In 1984, he even won for a children's program called The Wrong Way Kid. In 2015, when he was 89 years old, he got nominated for doing a voice in Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. He stayed relevant for generations, which is so rare. Then, in 2024, something incredible happened. At the age of 98, he won an Emmy for acting in Days of Our Lives. This made him one of the oldest Emmy winners ever. Not only did Van Dyke shine on television, but he also made history in music. In 1965, he and Julie Andrews won a Grammy for the Mary Poppins soundtrack. Songs like Chim Chim Cher-ee became famous all over the world. People sometimes joke about his Cockney accent in the movie, and even Van Dyke laughs about it, calling it the worst Cockney accent ever. Yet the soundtrack was a huge hit, staying at the top of the charts for weeks and selling millions of copies. Throughout his career, Van Dyke recorded other albums, proving that he could sing and entertain in multiple ways. The honor of being inducted into the Television Hall of Fame came in 1995, acknowledging all that he had done for television. His legendary career had begun at the young age of 69, and during the ceremony, Van Dyke delivered a moving speech, joking about how he still doesn't know what he really does. This exemplified his humility and humor. The Hall of Fame didn't just recognize his acting, it also celebrated his efforts to create positive shows, particularly for children. Van Dyke has been honored with numerous Lifetime Achievement Awards, the most prestigious of which was the Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award in 2013, bestowed upon him at the age of 87. This particular honor was unique in that it was decided upon by fellow actors. During the ceremony, Van Dyke stunned the audience with an unexpected performance of singing and dancing, demonstrating that he still possessed the boundless energy and charisma for which he was famous. He even made fun of his former Cockney accent from Mary Poppins, much to everyone's amusement. His contributions in Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang earned him a Disney Legends Award in 1998. At the event, he made an unexpected revelation. He didn't take any money for portraying Bert in Mary Poppins because he just wanted to be a part of the movie. The Kennedy Center Honors, one of the highest cultural awards in the United States, was bestowed upon him in 2021 when he was 95 years old. At the ceremony, performers of all ages paid tribute to him, praising his influence and noting that his high school in Illinois had named an auditorium after him. In 2010, Dick Van Dyke shocked everyone by discussing his past in a way that cast doubt on his portrayal of Mary Tyler Moore as his wife on The Dick Van Dyke Show. Despite their on-screen chemistry, their off-screen relationship was more complicated, and Van Dyke admitted that he had doubts about Moore's casting at first. He told Carl Reiner, the show's creator, that Moore was too young for the role, but Reiner reassured him, saying, "Nobody will notice." Rose Marie, another co-star on the show, had issues as well. She was envious of Moore and thought she got more attention, which led to tension on set. At one point, Rose Marie confronted Carl Reiner about it. Reiner attempted to defuse the situation by making a direct comment saying, "You both have great legs, they just prefer to look at hers." This demonstrates that truthful emotions and conflicts were occurring beneath the surface of the show. In 2024, Van Dyke admitted to having an affair with Michelle Triola while he was married to Margie Willett. The affair began in 1976, after they were separated, and continued until Triola's death in 2009. This shocked many fans, as Van Dyke had always been portrayed as leading a steady and drama-free life. He even went so far as to describe the situation as unbelievable, revealing the complexity of his personal life. Also, he brought up Mary Tyler Moore again, this time admitting that he had a crush on her during their time working together. This brought a new dimension to their legendary collaboration, but since they were both in relationships, it never materialized. According to Van Dyke, the unspoken feelings added some tension to their relationship. Then there was the surprising story of his friendship with Walt Disney, according to Van Dyke. "Disney personally made sure I got the role in Mary Poppins. Despite the fact that some people didn't want him in the film due to his terrible Cockney accent, Disney had faith in him, and the result was one of the most beloved films of all time." As Van Dyke approaches the century mark, people are reflecting on his impact on the entertainment industry. In October 2024, the Television Academy announced a major tribute to his career, sharing the fact that more than 500 television shows since the 1960s were influenced by his work. This includes both comedies and dramas, as well as reality shows. His distinctive blend of comedic and emotional acting made a profound impression on the field.